Zwift Academy gets the workouts wrong every year, but this year it's something completely different that they're doing. And I'm here to let you know what really matters in this year's Zwift Academy if you're going to ride it. But who am I and why should you even trust me? Well, I've been a professional cycling coach for over 12 years, and during this time, I coached Jay Vine to the win in the 2020 Zwift Academy and Sam Hill to the finals in the 2021 Zwift Academy. And over the years, I've put more thought into Zwift Academy strategy than probably anyone on the planet, including dedicating entire seasons to dominating Zwift Academy and the Zwift Academy finals. In this video, I'm going to give you my take on this year's version and how to get the best out of yourself if you're going for the pro contract. And just quickly, I respect Stephen Gallagher and Dan Fleeman, the coaches behind Zwift Academy. This is not meant to be a critique on them, but rather how I think about what it takes to win, especially for those aiming for the pro contract. But first, let's talk about how I've approached it in the past years, because strategy matters. And in such a competitive competition, every little bit helps. And in 2020 and 2021, I ordered the sessions by intensity, starting with aerobic/threshold work and then above threshold work. And I do it this way because it's how I structure my training plans. And for both Sam and Jay, we had done the extensive aerobic work building up to that, extending the time spent at lower aerobic intensities. And then we could switch to intensive aerobic sessions, extending time spent at higher aerobic intensities during Zwift Academy. And there were a few different types of workouts which were actually good for training and progress back then, training for overload and all the rest of it. But if we followed the original order, it could have been a 2 or 3 week gap between threshold work, and that really is a big chunk of wasted time. And also, if we could afford the work recovery time, I kept adding in interval sessions, and then just filled up the rest of the week with endurance sessions. The only exception was when we did some sprint workouts first and used them as training, and then actually took a rest week after that in the lead up to Zwift Academy. Okay, so now we get to this year, and it's a completely different competition this year. It's so different, in fact, that there are people that shouldn't even compete. And I'll explain why I say this in a moment. But first, let's run through the details. Let me start here by saying what Zwift Academy this year is and what it is not. And the biggest thing to understand, it's not a training program. You will not build specific fitness with the prescribed workouts. It's designed to find talented athletes, not to be good training for everybody else. Looking at it as a series of tests is probably the most accurate way to describe it. This is the key. Don't think of them as training. You have to do your training elsewhere. And even Dan Fleeman, performance director at Canyon SRAM, has said as much. We crafted the Zwift Academy program this year to really push the boundaries for all entrants, to take all riders through a series of workouts that mirror the demands of World Tour level racing based on real World Tour data. So if you're aiming for the pro contract, it's gonna be similar to doing a couple of random group rides or Zwift races in a week. So sure, it's riding, but it's also not structured training. So who's this for then? It's really for those wanting that pro contract, but it's also for a specific type of rider. Let's go through the tests and see if you can pick it after this quick overview. It runs from August 5 to November 3. That's 13 weeks this year. And starting with July 15, you get into registration, and then it kicks off on July 5, and you have until November 3, where it ends, and then in December 2024 and January 2025, the finals will be produced, and then February, March 25 finals will be broadcast. And there's 6 tests and 2 races. And here's the thing to watch out for when we go through them. Every workout has a specific purpose based on the data point that they'll be evaluating. And the data points of interest are represented as a free ride segment in the workout. So once you're in a free ride segment, you have control over your power output, and that's when you want to put the power down. The first one here, the Pro Potential Prologue, the purpose is a combined effort with the free ride to test if participants and candidates are pro level. They're looking for 30 seconds and 1 minute and 15-minute free ride segments. The second one, Power Push, the purpose is to challenge sprinting power and to measure their glycolytic capacity by replicating a real-world brunch sprint. Data points are 3 times 30 seconds free ride segments. Number 3, fatigue factor. The purpose of this one is to challenge maximal aerobic power in both fresh and fatigued states. The data points are a 3-minute effort and a 5-minute effort. Number 4, FTP overload. The purpose here is to challenge your physical tolerance with efforts over and under your FTP. No free ride segment. The entire thing is the only erg-based workout, and it'll challenge your fatigue resistance based on your endurance. Number 5, breakaway blitz. The purpose here is an attack replication to challenge glycolytic capacity and identify riders with high sprint power who can punch and recover quickly. The data points here are 3 times 20 seconds and 3 times 40 seconds. And the final one, the grand finale, the purpose of this one is to challenge sustained aerobic power with induced fatigue and to identify those who can still finish with a strong sprint finish at the line, but it's a 2-minute effort. So there's 10 minutes and 2 minute in the free ride segments. Now check this out. I went through all of them and pulled out the test efforts, and here they are, a full spectrum of efforts, including fresh and fatigued efforts, which I've highlighted as durability or sprint durability. So no true max efforts, all in race-like conditions, and all performance is matched by the ability to recover under load. And what type of rider does this suit? A puncher. If you're not familiar with punchers, this is straight from Wikipedia. A puncher or puncher is a road bicycle racer who specializes in rolling terrain. With short but steep climbs, the ideal races for this type of rider are one-day spring classics, making them classics specialists, which are characterized by multiple hills with 10 to 20% gradient and are 1 to 2 kilometers long. Sound like anyone you know? We can see where they sit on a muscle typology chart, and they sit somewhere here with this guy. So if this is not you, then maybe you'll have a hard time with the repeated nature of the tests. But there's more. The races. 2 races with completely different tests. Race 1 will simulate a climbing TT race on the Ventop route, looking at pure climbing effort. So it'll be a 30-minute max effort to be precise. But a win here will not mean automatic selection. They're looking holistically at your performance throughout the entire program. So again, I still think an all-rounder or a puncher is going to do well here, and that's what they're looking for. And race 2 is made for this type of rider. Race 2 is designed to challenge your resilience and sprint power in a competitive environment, and the race will be 9 laps of the Duchy Estate in Yorkshire, a short crit course. And this is probably just a confirmation that you know how to time attacks or win a sprint in a race. Now, as for strategy, it's not so obvious this year. The only thing that I can recommend is leaning into your strengths and building towards those while also continuing to train over the period and leaving enough rest to ensure none of the tests are compromised. The thing is, everything I told you is completely useless because there's still things that if you don't fix them, everything I told you will be a waste of time. Things like the best way to train your maximal aerobic power for things like repeatability. There really are things that you can do to speed up your progress. So watch this video next to understand the best way to do this.